Hey, how you doing? I'm doing good. I'm Gary Dawson here, and I'm with yet another exciting episode of How on Earth Do I Make This Shape in Rhino 3D? I'm calling this a pass-through, and it was inspired by a wood carving I saw. And I thought it was really graceful and kind of interesting how it passed through from one, part of the object passed through itself, I guess. And so it wasn't clear to me exactly how this was done at first, but I worked my way through it. And if you're a seasoned Rhino pro, this is probably a no-brainer for you. But if you're not a seasoned Rhino pro, this could be a fun film. So stick with me. It's not a bad time to go ahead and give it that thumbs up if you like the content and subscribe for more. I'm going to try and remember to remind you again at the end of this. So let's bring back my primary curves. You'll notice that this kind of a simple figure eight thing here, little modifications on the shape to get it to where I want it to do. Notice that I have actually three cross-section curves. I wanted it to really narrow down. I wanted the solid to really narrow down at this place where it passes through the larger element here. So I had to do this, and I'm going to show you a quick way that I got to that. Let's surface sweep one rail using these two cross sections or profile curves. I'm going to have to move the seam and change the direction of it here, and then that should work just fine. And if I make this into a closed sweep, it's the beginning of what we want, but it's not the final product. But what I'm looking for here is I extracted an iso curve from this section of the solid in order to get a perfectly positioned ellipse to use as my third cross section curve. So we'll just show that process. Extract iso curve from here. And notice I didn't have to toggle it. It came up in the right position. If it comes up like this, for example, then you're going to have to toggle it back to the other direction on the solid. So we simply make that iso curve. Enter, and then we can select and delete this thing. And then you can see that I once I had this made, um, I scaled it and positioned it. I did a bunch of stuff to get it just right for me, but that's a quick way to get to it. Let's go ahead and delete that one. And I want to show you, I used a cutter in order for the object to pass through itself. And the way that I created that was I selected this object, I changed the construction plane to be aligned with that object. I extruded this in both directions, right? And then I came down here to the right viewport and I used a transform command called bend this object, right? Enter. And it doesn't really matter exactly where I start the bend. In fact, let's disable both grid snap and O snaps here. So I'm going to roughly start it in the middle. I'm going to come out past the end, oops, past the end. And then I'm going to, oh, symmetric is already selected. I think I've been practicing here. Oops, I didn't want to do it that far. Let's re-invoke the command, bend, enter from about here to about here. And then what I did was move this to be roughly coincide with this curve. All right. So anyway, that's how I did it. We don't need to keep that one because I already have a cutter made that I'm going to bring back in a little bit. So that being said, the other thing I want to show you before we actually proceed with this is let's make sure we want to get the perspective back to world top. I have an alias that does that for me. Uh, and so this is going to be important in just a minute, and I'll show you why. We're going to find out the direction of this curve. So we don't need to change the seam or change the direction. We just need to know which direction it's going. So you'll notice that it goes clockwise on the top, swirls around, and goes counterclockwise on the bottom. So let's go ahead and remember that if we can. And while it's still selected, we can surface, sweep one rail, and we will go from uh, top to bottom this time, and enter. And we're going to need to modify our seams here a little bit, and I believe that needs to be like that. Let me just look at it for a second. Yep, that's correct. So if we do this, then we have half of our project. Now we're going to re-invoke that command, and we're going to select this curve, our third profile curve here, and then this curve. And we're going to need to do some seam adjustments here. Let's see. Oh, no, we're not. I think there's a correct, so we'll press enter and find out. Yep, worked just fine. Okay, so now we have our basic shape. We can turn off in layers, turn this off. Now, in order to cut, let's isolate this. In order to cut this with our cutter, we're going to have to make it a solid. So since these are planar holes on both ends, we can just invoke cap planar holes, and I have an alias that does that. So it's now a solid. So now we can bring our cutter into view. We'll do a Boolean difference using this cutter, enter, and then we can take the cutter away. Okay, now before we bring back our other side, we're going to have to Control Shift Select. Actually, you wouldn't have to, but I like to do this. I like to work with, nice solid objects. Okay, so now let's bring back our other one. And I think, let's see, what I want is not that one. I think I have, there it is. I want to hide that one again. There we go. Now, these are the ones that we just made. And we can drag select and Control J join. And now we have a solid object. Notice up here, two surfaces or polysurfaces joined into one closed polysurface. That's right above the command line. It says that. Okay, so now we basically have our shape, but I wanted it to be a nice soft shape like that guy's wood carving that I saw. So what are we going to do? We're going to go to Sub D Tools, do a quad remesh, and I think in this case I use something like 500 quad count. I also want Y symmetry on this, and we'll convert it to Sub D. And we'll let Rhino do its thing. And then let's just move this over 20 units and see. So that's how I got to that object. Very cool, huh? Okay, there's one more thing I can show you because this has been a short demonstration so far. There's one more thing that I can show you. We can delete both of those. We will bring back, oh, I should mention, by the way, if you're noticing that Rhino looks a little bit different, I'm working in the work in progress, what will eventually become Rhino 9. But now it's called Rhino's Playful with its words. So it either calls this Serengeti or the Rhino WIP work in progress. Let's bring back the original here. I'm going to show you one more thing. That video that you saw in the very beginning was a fly-through render using this path curve that I created. And if you haven't worked with this before, it's really fun. You can do really cool rendering. So if you go to Rendering Tools, and I have already created this, but let's record one. Well, let's look at the process. Okay, so we're going to set this up first. And we have some options here. We can do a 1-day sun study. We can do a fly-through animation. We can up a path animation and or a 360-degree turntable. This one is a path animation. And I'm going to go to select the path first. And then you have to have a target for the camera to look at. And what I'll do is Control Shift select just this part of the object, of the sub D object here, because I want it to kind of focus on this hole when it flies through the upper part of it. So I have this set to capture method of concept in the viewport perspective. It wants to produce JPEGs, and I have a number of frames of 400. So we push OK. We're happy with that. We have it set up. And now here's the cool thing is that to get this out of the viewport, you can hide that, and then you go back to render tools and record. And then you have to press enter. After you touch the record button, you have to press enter, and then it will begin this. Now, what I did after this was recorded, I moved it into an application called Shotcut. I speeded it up a little bit, and that's how I began this recording. So I hope all this has been extremely helpful to you. Again, if you're an old hand, you can laugh at me all you want because I stumble through these videos. But if you get anything valuable about it, give me a big thumbs up, and please subscribe. It helps the algorithm. The algorithm. Okay, take care, and I'll see you again next time.